we are going to factor trinomials today. A trinomial is a polynomial with three terms, hence the word tri. So here's an example of a trinomial. Now, how do I know that there are the three terms? Well, the terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs. So I put this around them, I can clearly see there's three trinomials. This video is going to focus on trinomials where the lead term has a coefficient of 1. So when you don't see a coefficient, it's because it's an invisible one. So this expression, we want to find an equivalent expression in factored form. This expression is in standard form. In standard form, it's listed in descending order with the highest exponent. So this trinomial is a quadratic trinomial with a degree of 2. Degree meaning the highest exponent. So this is in standard form, and the goal is to rewrite an equivalent expression in factored form. So we start out with the two factors. So the first parentheses represents the first expression, and the second parentheses represents the second expression, and both are factors. In other words, would multiply to equal what we see in the expression represented in standard form. The first sign comes down, and the second sign is the multiplication of the two signs in the standard form expression. So positive times a positive is a positive. Now if we look at the first term here, this is x to the second power. In other words, is x multiplied to itself 2 times. There's 2 x's being multiplied here. We're going to bring one here and bring down the other x. So these 2 x's being multiplied, its factored form, represent the x squared here. I'm just going to put the answer here. So how do we figure out what are the two numbers that go inside these two spaces? Well, we have to find two, in this case, positive numbers because of the plus sign. So I'm going to put this to remind myself I'm dealing with positive numbers that multiply to the constant, which is the number in the expression without a variable, so a positive 2. But these same two positive numbers have to add up to the middle coefficient, so the coefficient of the middle term of the trinomial, which is a positive 3. Now 2 only has 2 factors because it's a prime numbers, 2 and 1. So the quick check, 2 times 1 is positive 2, yes. 2 plus 1 is positive 3, yes. So our correct factored expression, x plus 2 times x plus 1, is equivalent to our original expression standard form, 1x squared plus 3x plus 2. Feel free to pause, think about it, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next problem. So let's take a look at another expression. Again, we're dealing with, and I can go ahead, it could be any variable. I have p squared minus 8p plus 7, and I'm dealing with, this way of factoring works right so far as long as our lead coefficient is 1. Okay, so the goal is to have an equivalent factored expression that is equivalent to the original trinomial we'll see on top. Okay, so for my first factor, the first sign again, it's the same method, comes down. Now, the second sign is going to be a negative, because negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a positive is gonna give me a negative number. You can go on your calculator if you don't believe me and pick any number, a negative number times a positive number. Your answer is going to be a negative number. And since multiplication is commutative, the order of how you multiply doesn't matter. So a positive times a negative is going to give me a negative number. Like positive 2 times negative 2 is going to give me negative 4. So you can plug in with any number, a negative times a positive times a negative, you're going to see that you're going to get a product that's a negative number. So in other words, if the signs in the original trinomial are different, then you can have a negative number here. Because if you multiply two of the same signs, two positive numbers, your answer is going to be a positive number. If you multiply two negative numbers, your answer is going to be a positive number. Because negative times a negative is positive, like negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, for example. So when your signs in the original equation are the same, both positive or both negative, then the sign of your second factor is going to be positive. Okay, so two opposite signs, and the second factor is going to have a negative in there. I have p to the second power, so that's 2p, so I'm going to bring one here and one there. And then now I see that I'm dealing with two negative numbers because of the signs. So I have to find two negative numbers that multiply to the constant, the number by itself, it's a positive 7, but that add up to be a negative 8. Remember, that sign in front always follows the number that comes after. So that's important to note. Now, because that's important to note, you should always, make sure you have your sign. So worst comes to worst, if you're unsure, always take the sign in front. Now 7, again, is also a prime number, so it's an easy one. We have 7 and 1. Negative 7 times negative 1 is giving me a positive 7. Negative 7 plus negative 1 in the calculator is going to give me a negative 8. So my answer, my factored form, is going to be p minus 7, because of the negative 7, times p minus 1, negative 1. This is equivalent to the expression on top. Okay, so let's do a couple more examples, except now we're going to be dealing with a trinomial of the degree of 4. We'll see what that means. The degree of 4. So we have here x to the 4th power plus 3x squared minus 4. Okay. The only real difference here, we're still dealing with a trinomial. We have 1, 2, 3. This is in standard form. This is a polynomial to the 4th degree because the highest exponent is 4. The middle term has a degree of 2nd. And then we have a constant. So that's what's similar here. They're similar in the sense that we're dealing with, again, trinomials where the lead coefficient is 1. We have a constant. We start it the exact same way. The first sign comes down. No matter what it is, it comes down. The second sign, because they're different, is going to be negative. If they were both the same, the second sign would be positive. Now, instead of bringing just one x here and one x here, this would be there's two x's being multiplied to each other. If you look at the lead term, there's 4 x's being multiplied to each other. So we're going to bring down 2 and we're going to bring down 2. You're splitting them evenly. So x squared times x squared is x to the 4th power. So that's the only difference that you're seeing here compared to the prior problems we did. Then we are going to follow the same process. We got to find two numbers, a positive and a negative, that when you multiply, it's going to give you your constant, which is a negative 4. But those same two numbers have to add up to your middle coefficient, which is a positive 3. Now here, it's no longer 4, it's no longer a prime number. So when you think about it, let's just ignore the sign for a minute there. 4 times 1 is going to give me 4, and 2 times 2 is going to give me also 4. So if we were to, let's try the 2. Let's see if it works. It has to work for both. 2 times -2 is -4. That works. 2 take away 2 is going to give me 0. 2 plus -2 is going to give me a 0, not 3. So it doesn't work. So we can't use 2 times 2. I'm going to go erase. And then we're going to try 4 and 1. Now, when the signs are different, this is where it really truly matters. You got to put the bigger number first, because we're following a process. Let's try it the incorrect way. Let's put the smaller number first, and we'll see that it is going to work for the top. +1 times -4 will give me -4, but 1 take away 4 is going to give me -3. It's not going to give me a +3. And I'm getting the wrong answer because I put the smaller of the factors first. So let's do it, remembering the bigger number should go first, regardless of the sign, because right now the sign gets taken care of already in the layout. +4 times -1 gives me -4. Yep. 4 take away 1 does give me +3, the correct middle number of +3. So my final factor form is going to be x squared plus 4 because of the positive, x squared minus 1 because of the negative. And this expression is equivalent to the original trinomial. We'll do one more together. Always feel free to stop the video to process information. And always feel free to rewatch. Just like when you are reading a book for English, sometimes you have to reread certain parts before you can move on. And that's completely normal. It's part of learning. So we're gonna, since we're in the topic of trinomial of the 4th degree, just so we don't forget. Okay. So now we're dealing with n invisible 1, so this process is going to work for that. We start out with my 2 parentheses that represent the factors, the 2 factors. The first sign comes down. Again, the signs are opposites, they're different, so the second sign is a negative. Because this is a degree to the 4th power, there are 4 n's being multiplied to each other. So I'm going to break down 2 n's that being multiplied to each other and the other 2 n's being multiplied to each other down. Then I need to find 2 numbers, a positive and a negative, that add up to the constant, which is a -20. And those same 2 numbers, that positive number and that negative number, have to add up to your middle term. Now, some people look at that and they forget and they think, oh, I don't see it's 0. No. We're seeing a positive 1 n squared here. In other words, there's an invisible 1. And it's an invisible positive 1, not a negative 1, because of the positive sign in front of the n squared. I'm adding 1 n squared. So it's a positive 1. Now again, we want to make sure the bigger numbers goes first. Okay? And ignoring the sign, we know that 20 has a few factors. 20 times 1. We have 10 times 2. We have 5 times 4. I'm putting the bigger number first, just so I remember that that's the order I needed, so I get something that works for both of these 2 checks. So I know automatically 20 and 1 is not going to work. Definitely, it always works for the top. 20 times -1 will give me -20, but positive 20 plus a -1 is going to give me 19. It's not going to give me the positive 1 that I need. Same thing with 10 too, it's not going to work. It will always work for the top, because positive 10 times -2 will give me -20. So you really have to just check the bottom. Positive 10 plus -2 is going to give me 8. So Doesn't work. So the only one that's going to work is 5, 4. Again, it will only work if I put the 5 first. 5 plus negative 4 does give me negative 1. If I do the opposite, positive 1, excuse me, positive 1. 5 plus negative 4 gives me positive 1. If I make the error of putting the smaller number first, I would get 4 plus negative 5, which would give me a negative 1. And we know from the original expression we're dealing with a positive 1 as your middle coefficient. So we have it the correct order, the bigger number first. And it makes sense. You notice these guys here, 5 and 4, they have a difference of 1. If I were to subtract 5, take away 4, it's going to give me 1. So I could just think about all these factor pairs, and right away I know I'm going to have to pick a number pair that the difference is going to be a 1. Because we're dealing with a adding a negative number, that's the same thing as just taking away that number from 5. So 5 times negative 4, negative 20. 5 plus negative 4 is a positive 1. So my final answer is n squared plus 5. That's the number we put in there. Times n squared minus 4. Just the number we put there. That's an equivalent expression to the original expression. Now once you've learned how to do this kind, where your degree is a power of 2, don't make an error. Some people they go ahead and learn that one where you have where you have the power of 4, and then they automatically think, oh my goodness, I'm always going to bring 2 x's to each of those factors. And no, you're not. Some people look at a problem like this and then they go ahead and bring 2 and 2 x's here. Excuse me, sorry about that. That is not correct. That's 2 x's being multiplied times 2 x's being multiplied. That would be x to the 4th power. So do be careful. If we are dealing with a polynomial of the 2nd degree, then that means there's only 2 x's that you're going to bring down. I'm going to bring one x here and the other x here. Okay? So don't make that error. You're only going to bring down this if you have a degree of 4. First sign comes down. Feel free to stop and try it on your own, and then you could see whether we did it correctly or not. Okay? Always do that. Once you're getting the hang of it, stop the video and try it on your own. First sign comes down. In this case, the sign is positive. Why? Well, the signs are the same. Negative times a negative is positive. So when your 2 signs in your original trinomial are the same, and they multiply to a positive sign for your second factor. So that means we have to find a negative times a positive is going to give me a negative 60, my constant. Those same 2 numbers have to add up to the negative 11, the middle coefficient. 60 has a lot of numbers. There is, for example, 10 times 6, 60 times 1, 15 times 4. Okay, that's a negative being added to a positive, so I know right away this can't be it, because the difference, if I put that negative 60 plus 1, it's going to be negative 59, which is nowhere near negative 11. I always test the bottom one because it's always going to work on the top. So 10 and 6. Negative 10 plus 6, if you put that, the positive number, you would never put plus in your calculator. If you're adding a positive number, you would just do plus the number itself. This is just so you are aware that you are the second number is positive. So negative 10 plus 6 is going to give you a negative 4, which is not negative 11. About 15 and 4. Negative 15 plus a positive 4 it will give me negative 11. Negative 15 plus times 4 is going to give me negative 60. So it worked for this one. So we have our final answer is x minus 15 times x plus 4 is the expression, factored expression that is equivalent to the polynomial x squared minus 11x minus 16. X to the second power, that means only two x's. Okie dokie. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.